Thank you for listening to We Have Ways of Making You Talk. Sign up to our Patreon to receive bonus content, live streams, and our weekly newsletter with money off books and museum visits as well, plus early access to all live show tickets. That's patreon.com/wehaveways. Achtung, or should that be Who Dares Wins? Who Dares Wins?
Probably should be, shouldn't it?
It probably should be. Welcome to part 2 of our special episodes about the Special Air Service and the actual Special Air Service now. James and I, joined by Tom Petch.
Yeah, we've worked our way through.
Yeah, we worked our way through the various, the British Army and its insistence on confusing matters with nomenclature.
Yep.
And that it's not even Dudley Clark doing it to deceive anyone. It's the British Army fooling itself over and over and over again. I mean, we've said this before, Tim, about D-Day, is calling it the Special Service Brigade. So you end up looking at a map and it says SS on it. You think, what? What were you people thinking?
What were they doing landing on Sword Beach?
Yeah. What were they thinking? Anyway, Tom, you set the scene for us for D-Day, for this series of deep penetrations behind German lines. 4 SAS going to Brittany, 1 SAS cutting the route south of Paris, 1 SAS as well going to Bordeaux, Operation Houndsworth as well. I mean, they're getting around, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
And then 2nd SAS in a diversionary raid called Operation Titanic, more of which later. And the idea is to go behind enemy lines, to offer sort of chaos, confusion and intelligence and a stiffener to the resistance if the resistance need it, but to be self-contained, to be self-sustaining, not reliant on the locals or any of that stuff. Sometimes in combination with Jedburgh, as you pointed out before, sometimes not. So taking the Jedburgh people as they come.
And sometimes in combination with the RAF, which is the key, or Allied Air Force, which is the key bit.
Actually the really important part.
Yeah, and I think the key point about this is suddenly they're going back to what they're originally designed to do in the Sterling, Jock Lewis, Paddy Mayne early years of North Africa. They're operating deep behind enemy lines, causing mayhem, and that's what they were designed to do. That's what they're supposed to do. The kind of sort of commando troop raiding missions of Italy times. That's long gone. This is back to kind of core mission.
And Titanic, though, which is the deception op as well. So their strategic purpose as well as, in that strategic deception purpose. So I think our listeners are pretty familiar with Operation Fortitude and the sort of dummies and Ruperts and all that sort of stuff. But what's the SAS?
Well, just a reminder that Fortitude is the deception plan in the build up to D-Day.
Yeah,
this is Juan Puyol and all this kind of stuff, and Patton's army group and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, you're absolutely right. So this is also a sort of sop to the 21st Army Group who wanted the SS dropped over by Calais. They did actually want the SS scattered, like we said in the last episode, like confetti between Normandy and Brussels. And so that the deception that's called Titanic, named by Michael Foote, who's the intelligence officer for the SS Brigade, who didn't think that the Germans would associate it with disaster. Well, he might not have, but I think the guys pinged for the operation might have thought that.
Thanks, boss.
If you're a true commander in 2 SS, you're given the job of Operation Titanic, you might go, yeah, that's not a good name, is it? So essentially this is, there's to confuse matters more, there's Operation Titanic 1 to 4. And essentially these are mainly fake SS units. They're, like you say, pintails, or we call them Ruperts. I'm sure Rupert was invented after the war because a Rupert's also slang for an officer, rude slang for an officer. But at the time they were called pintails, which is an exploding paratrooper, or peregrines, which is one you can strap stuff to the back of, or like confetti, but they're fake. And they were going to be scattered all the way along the northern coast of France to throw disorder amongst the Germans as to where these airborne units are coming in. And don't forget, there's real airborne units coming in at the same time. So the airborne plan is kicking in. And in fact, 3 Titanics, Operation Titanic 3 gets cancelled due to lack of aircraft because the airborne plane just can't sustain this level of operations. But Operation Titanic basically at either end, so down to due south of Normandy, and then at the other end over by Calais, was supposed to have real troops in it. So the lot on the right-hand side, so the furthest east, over by Calais was supposed to be Paddy Main's boys. That was 1 SAS. And over on the left, you were supposed to get now Brian Franks' boys, 2 SAS. And each was supposed to get a troop parachuted in. And I think the idea was they would shoot dispatch riders and generally cause a bit of a fuss. They're being dropped deeper in Normandy than the Americans and the other airborne forces. The trouble is, Michael Foot goes down to 1 SAS to talk to Paddy Main about this. He tells him to bugger off. He says, I'm not doing it.
Is this Michael Foot as in Michael Foot?
No, it's Professor Michael Foot. No, not as in Michael Foot.
Okay.
Professor.
Who ends up writing the official history.
Yes, who ends up writing. MRD. So he's a well-informed gentleman, and he is at the moment intelligence officer of the SAS Brigade. So he comes back going, Main won't do it, which basically pulls that operation. And then it's sort of finding people who will do the op. So he goes down to see Brian Franks, 2 SAS, and he says, I've got a few guys. And I think they must have reached out for volunteers because you've got Lieutenant Frederick Chick Fowles, because in the British Army, if you have a nickname and your surname's Fowles, you'll be Chick.
Yeah.
My tank operator was called Rita because his surname was Hayward. And then you've got Lieutenant Norman Puddle Pools. And then you've got their troopers, Dawson, Chippy Saunders, and then Hurst and Anthony Merriweather. So not a massive force. A small group of desperados who are going to be dropped with 39 fake parachutists, 12 exploding parachutists, and 14 rifle simulators. And they go in south of Normandy. And they run into this, the operation's on and off. And when it gets called off, some of the old sweats go, oh, you're lucky to dodge that bullet, mate. And then, of course, it gets put back on and they go, no, you got to go now. And they go, all right, so we may never come home again. And they're dropped on the neck of the Cherbourg Peninsula near St. Lo, so further south than the other airborne units. Poole lands unconscious. We think he hit his head on exiting Halifax.
Does he recover?
He's unconscious for an hour.
Blimey.
In the field. I know. Not a good moment. Luckily, the Maquis pick him up. Because if it had been someone else, that would have been a very bad and short end to his military career.
Yeah.
Chick Fowles can't find him, but releases his pigeon because he's been dropped with a pigeon to say, we're here, as you are. Pigeons feature quite heavily in these airborne ops. And then they go to work. They're basically surrounded by Germans, and so their work is. We can talk about the success of this operation, how believable it was. They meet up with 3 men from US 508th Parachute Regiment who've been captured immediately and then get released. And there's this great picture actually on Paradata, which is of them all posing in a bush with the American soldiers. Sort of stick. I don't know who took the picture, why. They're behind enemy lines, and they survive for 41 days. I mean, they're on the run, trying to do small amounts of damage. They are eventually captured. Eventually, the Germans catch them in a ditch, throwing some grenades. They're all wounded, but they don't get killed, which we'll come to later on, which is strange given what we'll talk about later in relation to the commando order and special forces.
So they go on, they survive 41 days with the 3 men of the 508?
Yeah, with the 3 men of the 508. They're all on the run together, living off the land, no idea where anyone is.
Amazing.
They then strike out north, try and link out with the advancing. They're quite close to the advancing. The Americans then, they try to reach the US lines on the 17th of July. So they kind of know where they are because they can hear all the fighting and that, but they just don't make it. And they also suspect they're being hunted by them. They think there's a company actually actively looking for them. They hide in a ditch. And as I say, the Germans throwing grenades. They're all wounded by 2 of them. Chick Fowles gets an MC for the action. And then, then you wonder, how effective that was. Do you know what I mean? Because we know Operation Fortitude is very effective. We know that the Germans buy that.
Yeah.
But when they're debriefed, the Squadron Quartermaster Sergeant Wiley says it does not appear that the simulated drop of an airborne division did, in fact, cause any abnormal German activity in the area. But that obviously contradicts the military cross, which Fowles gets because he succeeded against overwhelming odds in bringing his party to Allied lines. His determination, courage, and leadership were the highest order. So there you go. I mean, who knows? I guess having them running around behind the lines was effective to a degree. It was a bit of a suicide job, to be honest, and they were very lucky to get out of that alive. I mean, very brave men.
Well, and particularly we didn't talk about it in the last episode, the commando order in place that basically...
Yeah.
The Germans are supposed to execute people like this, aren't they?
Yeah.
Simple truth. So, they're very fortunate that no one's tumbled them for being commandos, as it were. I know they're not, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, the picture of them on Paradata is tremendous. I mean, they look...
It's just bizarre.
I can't say they've kept up standards and managed to shave. But, apart from that, they look quite... I
did wonder if it was taken after the event. It couldn't have been taken after they were wounded because they're clearly not wounded in that shot. No. So,
No, it's absolutely tremendous.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an amazing picture.
It is a very good picture.
Yeah, there's crosses on the heads of 4 of them. I don't know what that
Yeah,
means.
well, if you go on Paradata, go on there. They've got lots of great stuff about parachute units, and you can look up all the names because they put pictures up there, and then all the relatives go, "Oh yeah, that's so and so, and that was this op or whatever."
It's such a great resource, that actually.
It is a great resource. It is a great resource. And the only other thing I think is maybe because they had Americans with them, the Germans didn't suspect them of being special forces. They maybe thought they were part of airborne people. But anyway, they get away with it. So that was Titanic, which is a bit of an anomaly because that's just a deception operation, but it's worth mentioning because it goes in early. And then we really go to the main event, which is the night of the 5th, 6th of June and D-Day proper. And in the last episode, we discussed it. So basically, 21st Army Group have only been left with 4 SAS, which is the French, which, if you listen to the last episode, that's the Penguin.
Yep.
Machu, he's like Obelix, 2 girders for breakfast, has 1 arm with his combat smock tucked into his pocket because his right arm was shot off by a German aircraft when he was wounded 37 times in Tunisia. So there you go. That's him. He's got a gitan in his lips and he's going to go and do some damage. And he wants to do a lot of damage. And his mission is you will cut off, as far as possible, communications between Brittany and the rest of France. So they go to work straight away. 5th and 6th of June, they parachute in. And there's 2 ops, Sam West, which is in the north near St. Malo, and then Ding Song, which is in the south. And if you look on a map, that's literally the neck of Brittany.
Yeah.
So they're going in north and south. They're going to sever the neck, and they're going to stop the Germans getting out of there. And the first stick on the ground, which is probably very early, and actually probably leads to the first D-Day casualty. So Pierre 1 goes in under Lieutenant Pierre Marian, Emile Boutard and 8 men, and also Andre, who is the SOE operative, Andre, which is Hugh Hunter. And he was born in Swansea with a Welsh mother and French father. And when his ship was sunk off La Rochelle in 1940, he swam ashore naked. And with no family in France, started spying. And now he's being redeployed as a member of the SOE.
Amazing.
So they're going in blind, though. They've got no one on the ground. They're going in blind with Andre with them. And they drop and unfortunately immediately get into a scrap just off the drop zone with Georgian and Ukrainian troops.
Amazing.
Because Himmler's worked out rather late in the war that the Georgians and Ukrainians don't like the Soviets. And actually, they will fight for the Germans. And this is Vaslov's army. So General Vaslov, who was captured Leningrad, has now got an army. And he's not fighting the Soviets. He'll be sent to Brittany to defend it. And there's a big bust-up firefight, and Corporal Emile Boutard is the first man to die on Op Overlord. I suspect some listener will tell me now that there was a boat that capsized. Well, in combat. I don't know if anyone died in combat before him, but it is early hours of 6th of June. And he's actually executed. He's wounded in the firefight. And this is where the commando cop kicks in. He's wounded in the firefight.
Yeah.
One of Vaslov's men comes up and shoots him. And that's the end of him.
Wow.
Yeah. And then to the south, secret base is set up, and the Penguin jumps in on like the 10th, 11th of June. So that's the main force deploying. And they get into a massive scrap with the Germans. Basically, the Germans try and take them out. There's about 30 killed. The base in the north breaks out and they sort of exfiltrate back to the south. They're being hunted by German parachute division, problems with the Gestapo. And then we come to the really bad moment on the 13th of July. So we're quite a long way after D-Day. They've done very well. They've cut off Brittany. They pinned the Germans down. There's another operation they've carried out, which is called Op Cooney. So some of the 4 SS have been deployed in small units, like we're talking 3 to 4 men, throughout Brittany, just to sever rail links. But in the firefight on the 12th of July, Lieutenant Pierre Marian, who we just talked about, and 17 are captured. So that's 6 of the SS paras, 8 Maquis and 3 locals, and they're all shot at dawn. So that is the commando order kicking in big time, I mean, it's tragic.
That's
They're just
awful.
going to kill them. Yeah.
Yeah, horrendous. But that's working though, right? These ops are working in a way that Titanic has, a hard to measure effect. This stuff is actually causing the Germans all sorts of problems.
This is incredibly tough fighting, led by a commanding officer who is part of the original parachute initiative for the French, who then ended up in the SAS. I mean, there's about 400 SS involved. 77 were killed and 197 wounded. I mean, It's a brutal blood fight. They recruit 3,000 Maquis fighters and they block the access to Normandy. Yeah. And there's about 85,000 Germans there.
That's amazing, isn't it?
So you're talking bang for your buck. That's good, but they're taking it.
So how are they doing that?
They're calling airstrikes. Destroying the rail network is a big deal.
Yep.
I mean, taking out literally all the railways throughout Brittany.
So when you say talking about blocking 85,000 Germans, that's the 85,000 Germans who are garrisoning Brittany.
That part of France, who would have been available to Normandy. I mean, they would have been able to move across. I mean, that's a number that's quoted. You don't know. There's probably some German units break through, but the Germans' reaction is to punish these guys. So the Germans are obviously feeling it. And we talk about the Phantom network. They are able to call in airstrikes. So they're able to call in strategic on targets they can see on the ground. So, it's causing the Germans a massive headache. I mean, one of the results, which is Operation Cooney, they say there's virtually no rail network left. They've blown it to pieces. And how are you going to get around without a rail network? Back in 1944, very slowly is the answer. Very slowly and very vulnerable to air attack.
Yeah, of course.
This basically runs until August, until the start of August. Isn't it?
Patton's troops finally get through to the 3rd of August. They link up with them. And it's quite interesting, these link-ups, because sometimes the SS get grouped up and redeployed, but quite often they then end up working as kind of glorified recce units for the advancing forces. Patton's not massively keen on that. We'll talk about that later, but sometimes they end up working. There is a unit that works with 3S US Infantry Division in this area, as a kind of glorified eyes and ears.
And then, Op Spencer is another one of these.
Yeah.
Which is, again, with the American advance now, rather than waiting for the Americans, aren't they? They're part of that ongoing swing round.
Yeah, swing round. I mean, I think the way to look at this, there's basically interdiction, which is what we're talking about, where you're cutting the lines. And that's D-Day to kind of beginning of July, mid-July. And then there's the more ad hoc operations, which is what can the SAS do? And we did kind of allude to this last time, but the big advantage with the SAS is, unlike the parachute regiment, they can be deployed very quickly or redeployed very quickly. So you can hoover up your troops, put them back in an aircraft and chuck them back out again. Or you've got other troops that are on standby. So Op Spencer is basically Patton. When Patton strikes south and then turns left, so if you're looking at a map, he's going south and then he's going east. As he gets south towards the Loire, he's got an open flank because he's going to do a left turn, basically. So Op Spencer is basically, for SAS, get their jeeps, and they get down there and they get across the Loire and they cover his flank. Patton's actually very complimentary to the OSS and saying, thanks. He says to Wild Bill Donald, thanks very much for covering my flank. But actually, probably it's the French who need a little bit of credit there, because they're the guys who are actually in the jeeps doing the fighting.
Doing the fighting.
Yeah.
Right.
But even so, all these guys, they're presumably pretty lightly armed. This is Bren guns and Sten guns and grenades and explosives and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
K-guns.
Yeah. The K-gun, we'll talk about this again later, but the K-gun has an enormous rate of fire. It is pretty scary. What the K-gun appears to be very effective at is, if you've got badly trained troops, you drive at them and open up with a K-gun, they run for cover. If you've got a Panzer Grenadier who's served on the Russian front, he just looks at you and goes, well, that's going to miss me, waits till you get close and clocks you with a 20 millimeter. So it's like, it's very effective against disorganized, badly trained troops. But anyone who knows what they're doing just goes, that guy's not going to hit me. I'll wait till he gets close and I'll smash him. And that's what happens.
Right.
So they can be effective. And a lot of these troops, German troops, are quite low quality, as we know. The garrison troops, they're not highly trained, they're not motivated, and they want to get out of France. So scaring them with a Vickers K on a Jeep is quite good.
Give them an excuse to run away,
basically. Yeah, exactly.
And what we'll do is we'll post these maps that you sent us so people can get a grip of it. Then there's the deepest of these penetrations, which is Operation Houndsworth. As we said at the end of the last episode, Shafe says, how low can you go, basically?
Yeah.
And of course, this is all to do with what airlifting can be done.
Yeah.
That 600k down into France from England. It's quite extraordinary.
Yeah.
How are they deploying the jeeps, Tom? Are they dropped from aircraft?
They kind of come out at the bottom of, I think it's a Halifax. I think it's like they cut it out. So they have jeeps and they have 6-pounder guns and they can drop them out. We should get a picture of that, actually, because it's quite good. They've got a cutout at the bottom. And obviously you'll know from Arnhem, Al, that's how they get them. Well, they get them in gliders in Arnhem, don't they? They don't drop them.
Yes, they do, yes.
But
they don't drop them.
Dropping a jeep is problematic because it does tangle up in trees. It can come down and be badly broken. All of that happens. So in Houndsworth, when they get their first, I think it's their first 3 jeeps, one ends up the trees and takes them about a day, and there's something to cut out of it and get it on the ground,
Yeah.
But it's quite amazing that we're doing this. Here we are in 44 dropping this heavy kit behind enemy line, and it gives them masses of mobility. So to explain with all these raids, on the 6th of June, the advanced parties go in, and then they really build up strength. So Fraser, actually, who's the officer commanding A Squadron 1 SAS, drops on the 10th of June. He drops with his Eureka Man, and the Eureka Man is a ground-to-air radio that allows you to identify that you're a friendly force on the ground. Very useful, so that they know that you're dropping supplies to you. I don't know why they didn't have them on them, actually. Why don't they have that on them?
No, they have Eureka. Oh, yeah, they have Eureka.
But why did they... So they dropped the supplies anyway without the Eureka?
But you know how Eureka works is it's passive. So it sits there and it waits for the ping from Rebecca, and then it goes, hello, I'm over here. That's the thing you vector on. And the RAF have been told to ignore anything they don't think is in the right place.
Oh, blimey.
Right? Because the Pathfinders, they do get their Eurekas out on the drop zone where the Polish gliders land on the third day. So the Polish gliders come in the afternoon thanks to the Eureka sets. But they can't position them in the right place for the supply drop zone because we don't hold the supply drop zone in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Don't hold it.
Yeah.
And also, you fly to where you've been told to fly to.
Yeah.
And the Eureka is your way of like checking that up. And after all, if the Eureka is somewhere else to where you expect it, that's probably the enemy. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because certainly when they try all sorts of methods of ground signalling, that doesn't work because the RAF have been told to ignore it.
Because they think it could be German. So this is a vital bit of kit, but like all airborne operations, Fraser's gets lost. So he drops into the... First of all, he's dropping at night. So he's dropping, I think, from a Stirling, where it's not the best aircraft. You've got to cut the inboard engines, go into a shallow dive, and they're going round and round and round. They're lost. They don't know where they are. And he's in there with his Eureka Man and Phantom team, goes, bollocks this, I'm jumping anyway. So he jumps with the whole lot. And a little bit of history. Fraser's a former Queen's Own Highlander corporal that becomes a commando after Dunkirk, though he doesn't go to Dunkirk because he's a sort of flyer in the military and he's picked up for officer training because we're desperately short of officers. So he's one of those people who probably wouldn't have been an officer outside the Second World War. And I think, again, the reason he's picked for this mission is he's kind of their best guy. You know, he's the most experienced, and he's taking with him people like Sea Kings and that lot. The old sweats, basically the guard of the SAS, go in on this one.
Yeah. This is Johnny Cooper as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Johnny Cooper later, But anyway, he drops and he realises he's going into forest, gets tangled up in the trees. It's so dark, he can't see the ground, doesn't know what to do. So he's thinking, well, I can't cut myself loose because I could be like 40 foot in the air here. So in World War II style, he lights a cigarette and realises he's 2 foot off the ground. So he then gets himself out of a harness, can't find anyone because they're all over the shop. Eventually finds his Eureka Man to find he's lost his set. That was lost on the drop. And they set off to the Marquis, which takes them 2 days to find them. But they do have their advance party has found them and they link up. And there's 200 Marquis in this forest. And then the Phantom team turn up, having also had trouble. And then they're up and running, basically, and they are... Initially, the weather stuffs them. He keeps writing no bloody good on the side of his reports. But eventually, the weather clears a bit. They get the rest of the unit, and they start to make some real mayhem. And as we said, Morven Forest is kind of like parallel with like Lyon down that way.
Yeah,
it's a bit west of Bern, isn't it? Bern.
Yeah, Bern. That's
Bern,
it. Yeah.
and Dijon. It's that kind of. It's like Central Eastern France.
It's Central Eastern, and the thing about it's a massive forested area, so it's brilliant for hiding in. Brilliant to operate from.
Germans don't want to go in there.
Germans don't want to go in there. Very loyal population. The thing Fraser's team have is, we'll talk about it in a minute, but the French brutalise the population to just try and get them to portray Fraser, and they just don't. And in fact, they have they just had a ceremony down there, which is attended by the now French SAS, who are called something else, but we won't go into that. It's kind of an every year thing now, the recognition of the sacrifice of the population. But yeah, he's busting up the Germans. The Germans go, well, we've got to do something about it. We've got to go into the forest and try and get them, which they try and do. And Fraser's quite a relaxed man. Sea King's interesting, says to Fraser, he says he's the bravest man in the SAS because he's always scared but did it anyway. And Fraser's woken up in his camp. He's woken up in his camp, and there's a massive firefight between the Mackie and this incoming German force of about 200. And Fraser takes a couple of brain guns around to the rear, and this is where Sea King's wounded. Sea King's goes through some dead ground to try and cut off the Germans, comes up the other side and gets shot. And he thinks he's been shot in the arm. He's actually been shot in the neck. And he goes, when they rush to him, they say, they're trying to sort his neck out. He goes, it's not my neck, it's not my arm, because obviously he's feeling the pain down his arm rather than his neck where he's been shot. But he survives. Anyway, Fraser gets the 2 brain guns around the Germans, and as they're sort of forming up, guns them down, kills about 50. And it just destroys the Germans. They can't... But this is what I'm saying, that's probably 4, 5, 6 guys taking down a unit of 200 that are then just out of their depth, you know? And unfortunately, that leads to the German... Prizels, German stroke, possibly Georgian, Ukrainian troops. These are garrison troops again in Vermont and Dunlaplace, where they rape women, including a 14-year-old girl, kill 70 men and hang the curate from the bell tower. Because that's what the Germans do when they can't get the unit they're after. They start
these are nearly all OSS battalions here. These are all in training units.
Yeah, they're OSS battalions, and they're just brutal. They're absolutely brutal.
This is where Jacko's father, your mate Jacko's father, would have been, he not been wounded, or I don't know, he was out of this particular unit by that point.
Hurt his trigger finger. Then he's captured by the Mackie, isn't he?
Yeah. But anyway, he's not involved in this, but he would have been
involved in this.
Because I remember when we were looking into that, I was thinking, oh God.
It swings around. It swings around because if you're in an infantry unit in Normandy, your chances of survival are very low. So in a way, your chances of survival here are probably a lot higher statistically. Definitely. But the stress is immense. And they know the moment they hit the ground, because some of the Mackie have got Denison smocks. And before Fraser's guys get on the ground, they're taken out and murdered. So they know damn well that if they're caught, it's over.
I'm Marina Hyde.
And I'm Richard Osman, and together we host The Rest is Entertainment.
It's your weekly fix of entertainment news, reviews, splash of showbiz gossip, and on our Q&A we pull back the curtain on entertainment and we tell you how it all works.
We have just launched our Members Club. If you want ad-free listening, bonus episodes, and early access to live tickets, head to therestisentertainment.com.
That's therestisentertainment.com.
But Fraser's smart. He's smart. He does things he thinks they've been compromised. He moves their base. And like I'm saying, very effective operation. And it really, really smashes up the German communications. I mean, they can't get stuff up those rail links. They're completely destroyed all the time. I mean, both by their active ambushes, but also by the Phantom teams coming in and calling in airstrikes. In fact, I've got an example here, Phantom message. I thought I'd read this out. This is Houndsworth. So actually, this is 26th of July. And it's coming up on the Phantom neck saying there's a flying bomb staging area and assembly dump at grid. So it gives the grid exact source in a tunnel. So there you go. That's a bit of live int that goes straight up to Captain Ford's at Chafe Command, who then calls in the aircraft. And so they're doing this over and over again. There's they go up. There's other ones like we got troops in a railway siding. We've got a fuel dump here. The impact on the Germans must have been enormous. They just can't get around.
It's interesting, though, because Wellstead, in his account, says that, after the Mackie battles...
Mackie battles, yeah.
Yeah, SAS Brigade come on and say, well done, refrain from engaging in Mackie battles, get on with cutting the railway.
Yeah, that's what they say. And it's hard to imagine Fraser getting that, sat in a forest where he's nearly been overrun, managed to protect the Mackie and kill, 50, and then you get that. But this is the problem. Brigade Command have never been in the SAS, so they got no idea. What that is about.
No idea at all what it's like and how.
No idea. And actually, that leads to my next sort of little bit, which is Rommel and Operation Gaff, because Fraser's down there, 14th of July, and this is the thing about strategic communications. He's got lines.
So he's still at Morvan. He's still at Morvan, but a lot of the French are now fleeing south from the war to the north. They're trying to get out of Paris, and he's picking up all sorts of intelligence. One of which is we know where Rommel's headquarters is. I've got a bloody landowner who knows. La Roche-Guyon.
Yeah, La Roche-Guyon. That's Rommel's headquarters. It's here, and he's in it, and this is where he lives. And what's more, he hunts on the other bank of the Seine. He takes a motor launch across and hunts on the other bank of the Seine, and he's not well defended when he does that. And Fraser goes, that's an interesting bit of intelligence, isn't it? And he comes up on the Phantom net and goes, I can take him, I can take Rommel. And he does that on the 14th of July. Of course, it goes into the network, into the ether of Chafe, and then it ends up in Brigade Command at the SAS, and they task to SAS to parachute in. And of course, they don't get there till the 20th of July. It's sort of that thing where you think, if you're a Director of Special Forces, you've got that message, you go, oh yeah, go for it. What are you risking? A couple of jeeps and a team? Your downside risk there is nothing, and you could kill Rommel. But they don't go for it. Operation Gaff, clues in the title.
They don't go for it. Well, but he gets shot up on the 17th of July.
They go for it, but they go for a separate operation task with a separate team called Operation Gaff that parachute in far too late, by which time the RAF have got him, because 17th of July.
Got him anyway,
got him anyway. But that's the RAF wounding him rather than, it's a headshot from...
But really, the note they get back is harsh and betraying the lack of understanding at higher level, at brigade level. And yet, actually, it's correct. I mean, that is their job. The job is to cut supply lines. It's to strangle the Germans and prevent them from getting.
Yeah, but from a morale point of view, James, if you're the troop, your squadron leader down there,
I can really get
that. Going, well done, chaps. You're still up and running. They could have been like the others, overrun and executed.
The wordage is poor. Clearly, but it's not getting away from the point that is what they're supposed to do. I mean, they are supposed to be cutting supply lines. That is the primary mission.
What you were saying there is the text of strategic communications lack the nuance of, lack the subtext of, well done, chaps. Well done.
But they do then get on with that. So
that's my point.
Cut the railway, they derail trains, they destroy locomotives.
Yeah.
synthetic oil plants, they actually have their strategic effect. But yes, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, Wellster's descriptions are a really grim life. You're hiding all the time. You're moving is extremely risky. You don't know if the locals are on your side or not, and all those complications. And you don't know if the enemy have figured out where you are, because it's the other problem with using the radio, isn't it? Is you can give yourselves away and all that sort of stuff. So his descriptions of an extremely stressful life doing these operations.
Yeah.
That it's really, really hard and difficult. He always talks about being exhausted all the time, that they're permanent, they're all absolutely knackered the whole time.
Yeah, they are knackered.
Because of the stress, hard endurance of living outdoors and hiding all the time.
Well, exactly. Living on the forest floor. I mean, it's not easy, is it?
Yeah.
I think we'll come to that, because there's a Padre McCluskey. He makes an interesting observation later on about when he gets dropped in the teams there and how they're operating. But clearly, you shouldn't be leaving men behind the lines for this long. They're on the edge of their abilities. Usefulness. Yeah.
One thing I will say: there's absolutely no consistency to the naming these damn things.
No.
So what is a Dingson when it's at home? Does anyone know?
Dingson. Don't know.
What is it? Houndsworth, Cooney, Bulbasket. They're strange names.
Yeah, but Bulbasket is the other biggie, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I think they pull them out of a hat, and then but you can change them like they do. So we talked about Titanic. That was chosen. You can get the randomized number generator. You're not supposed to choose something that is recognizable, which of course Churchill breaks all the time. You know, and we don't have the American where there's Operation Certain Death, Operation Kill 'Em All, or whatever,
Operation Righteous Eagle of
Right.
Freedom.
Exactly, yeah. So we're going to... So Bulbasket, again, one SAS op. This is dropped in 5th, 6th of June, John Tonkin. And so we're over by Bordeaux now. We're kind of on the route up. We talked about this last time, Poitiers-Limoges, that area.
It's basically a straight road going north to south. And what you've got is because Hitler has split up his mobile divisions and he's created this Army Group G down in the south, you've got the Das Reich SS division, Panzer division down in the south trying to get north. And there is this amazing episode where the resistance tell Tonkin and co. of Das Reich fuel trucks, fuel wagons heading north to support them in, I think it's Limoges, isn't it?
It's in a railway siding.
Railway siding. And so Phantoms get back onto the RAF back in London. Really ludicrous, like sort of they're told at 2:00 and at 4:30 those wagons are destroyed by mosquitoes.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying to you, that strategic comms is the absolutely crucial thing. Because at that moment, Tonkin's team are kind of pinned down because they get caught up in the middle of that move. So this Panzer Division's that's right, it's a big unit.
Yeah,
it's a big unit and it's all over the country.
Yeah, it's 20,000
They can't really move. But one of them goes on a bike to confirm that sighting. And then they call in that airstrike and they take out the fuel train. That's 10th of June, which must have been catastrophic for the Germans to lose your fuel supply. But then, they send up a signal 19th of June, we're being attacked by enemy who are thick in this area because the SS Panzer Division realised they've got to get rid of Tonkin. He's causing a lot of problems. And basically, they cause a lot of damage. Das Reich go through them. And then there's a sort of...
But the good thing, Tom, is obviously if Das Reich are getting sidelined to go and sort of take out SAS troops, then they can't be going to Normandy at the same time. I mean, or they can, but not all of them. And this is one of the reasons why Das Reich is so incredibly late getting to Normandy.
Yeah.
Too late to be any effect on the main part of the battle. The campaign up there, and that's because they're being sidelined by fuel trucks being blown up and by the SAS and having to deal with them and all sorts of stuff. So
I mean
it's not dissimilar from the Japanese being sidetracked Shanchak on their way to Kohima. It's a similar kind of situation.
But that's what we talked about last time. It's a proof of concept for Schaefer and Eisenhower. This is what they wanted to do. They wanted the SAS and Mackey doing this, and it's absolutely working. And then they've got Second Lieutenant Lincoln Delmar Bundy, who's a Mustang. I think he's a Mustang pilot, 486th Fighter Squadron. I mean, there always seems to be an American in the mix. The number of patrols where I go, oh, look, there's another Yankee in this one. Because anyone who's downed ends up being brought by the Mackey, bringing him into the SAS base. Go, oh, there's another one of your people here. And he sounds quite a character. But sadly, they are attacked on 3rd of July by 17th SS Panzer Grenadier Division. And they are in a firefight. They lose. And then there's this execution of people. Actually, Lieutenant Thomas Stevens wasn't beaten to death with rifle bullets. He was actually shot by a German. There's a misnomer there. But, we got 30 SS plus Bundy forced to dig their own graves and shot. And 3 that were wounded in the firefight are taken to hospital and given lethal injections. I mean, it's dreadful.
Amazing.
I mean, dreadful. This is why they're incredibly brave. That is the risk all these guys are running, and they know it.
Yeah. But there's revenge, isn't there? And this is Basil Embry.
Yeah, Baz Lembury.
Who's been on the run himself, of course, and managed to
he knows
escape.
this. He knows this. And Mosquito. So they're quite good at ground attack, and they're 14 crews coming from RAF Thorney and 4 Mosquitoes with HE, and then followed up by 6 with napalm. Must have been quite an impressive mess to take out the Germans. And actually, I'm talking about radio ops. So there's another thing. On the 23rd of July, Bulbasket come up again to say troops from target Bravo 28, so that was that lot, attacked on the 14th of June, have moved to the chateau, and they give the grid. Sources say request further bombing of the unit, which is believed to be responsible for atrocities in this area. So they're able to chase their persecutors with aircraft. They're calling them in. They're going, they've moved over there, and they're in that barracks now.
Amazing.
So that's quite interesting. And so, there were a couple tried after the war, but there was really no justice to that. And then Tonkin survived. So Tonkin didn't get caught in that lot, and him and 11 guys continued ops. And they're actually reinforced by 3 SAS, which we'll come to in a bit later on. But as a summary, Bulbasket is effective, but there was this huge tragedy in the movie. Right.
Well, it's highly risky stuff, isn't it? This is the point. Aside from the fact that you're likely to have the enemy chasing around trying to find you, that they then will probably murder you once they've captured you.
It's really sad. And one of the saddest part, like Stevens, who was shot at close range by a German, and a lot of them were from the auxiliary units. So those were the guys I talked about who were the guys who were trained in 1940 stay-behind units that then got picked up by 1 SAS by Paddy Mayne, and about 70 of them joined the unit. A lot of these guys that got killed were auxiliary units. So this was their first time into the battle, their chance to fight, and that's how it ended. Deserved a lot better.
How many men are we talking about?
So we're talking normally about 60, but quite often they don't really get that many. We just talked about Operation Bulbasket. Is he gets 2 troops pulled off him. He's on the drop zone, so that's Tonkin. And he discovers on the drop zone when he's reinforced by the rest of what he thinks is going to be the rest of the squadron, 23 men are missing because they've been pulled off onto another op. So
a troop is 10 to 12, is it?
Yeah, exactly. They're slightly different. The French operate in sticks of 10. We're probably 14-ish. But it fluctuates because it depends how many men you've got on the ground and whether they've been reinforced and whether they've been pulled off. But between 60 to 70.
A squadron would have how many, sort of like 6 troops, 8 troops?
No, they operate sort of 4-ish troops. But they don't really operate like that. They operate in smaller teams and outfits. It tends to be a couple of jeeps. So when you're reading the combat reports, they're often just 2 jeeps there, 2 jeeps here. And like I'm saying, the French go in sticks of 10, and then they form larger units. So Fraser forms up more squadron-sized groups of about 40, which is him and his jeeps, and then they tow the 6-pounders into bigger ops. But that's quite infrequent. Most of the time, you're talking just a few guys and the radios and getting stuff done.
It's all pretty small
Obviously,
stuff.
in the big bust-ups, when they're getting attacked in the camps, they're all fighting. Yeah.
But there's another one, isn't it, which is Operation Gain, and this is D Squadron.
Yeah, Operation Gain, So this is D Squadron, and we're basically now still in the railway cutting bit. So south of Paris, there's the lateral railway that runs around the periphery of Paris. And Operation Gain, which is in Fenwick's outfit, they're trying to get in there and cut those links. And that, again, we have to talk about the commando order, because this is how we find out about the commando order, that 7 are captured in a firefight on the drop zone. 1 was wounded and 3 were shot, but 3 run for it. They realise, having been held 3 weeks, they're taken out into a field and go, shit, this is it. They're going to execute us. And 3 run. And they're the guys who give us the heads up. The first proof of the commando order reaches our lines. We go, okay, the Germans really are killing special forces. But again, very, very effective operation. They hit railway lines 16 times, 2 locomotives destroyed with 46 trucks. And Fenwick signals we are happy in our work back to HQ, which he is. He's doing a good job. And then fast forwarding a little bit, Mayne is then planning. So Mayne is the CO of 1 SAS. He plans to drop in to D Squadron to carry out a follow-on operation, but they are overrun, and he doesn't drop there. And
that's Transfigure, isn't it?
That's Ops Transfigure, exactly.
One of the cancelled
ops. So
ops.
We'll come to this possibly in the next episode, but basically once these interdiction operations are finished, they're then into the pursuit phase, and now they're going to chase the Germans across France. But that is Transfigure's one of those ops. So they're in the transition of that. But what happens is when their C Squadron's base is taken out, Fenwick isn't there. What he doesn't know is he's in a Jeep and he's been spotted by a German spotter aircraft, and they've set up an ambush for him down the road. And a woman actually says to him, a French woman says, they're waiting for you up there. And he goes, thank you, madam, but I intend to attack them. And he's an ex-auxiliary officer, so he's one of those stay-behindies. And he drives at the ambush. And like I say, They don't buy the Vickers Ks at high rate of fire. They just wait for them to get close and kill him with a 20mm, which is instant death.
I mean, you can see why people are obsessed about this. And you can see why there's so many books that have been written, even about the SAS in France, because it's proper gung-ho boys' own stuff, isn't it? You know, guys on jeeps with Vickers guns on the back and, you know, living off the land and hiding up in woods and ambushing Germans and blowing up railway lines. I mean,
eating stinging nettles or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it's all pretty full-on stuff, isn't it?
I mean, that's why I was talking earlier about the recruitment. Is you've got to have former regular soldiers really to do this job. That's what you need. You know, you need people who've done some of this and then recruit them. And they don't really have a selection. So you know, the bit where they sort of put you through tests to make sure you get through it. You know. But like I'm saying, a lot of these guys, particularly the 1SS guys, they've been there and done it, you know. It's in their DNA. They've been doing this since the big 1941.
And Tom, they're pretty effective, aren't they? I mean, they deserve the reputation they've got as being superb behind-the-line soldiers.
Yeah,
they are special forces.
They are special forces. I mean, I think 1944, without a doubt, these are special forces. There's no other way to describe what they're doing. And actually, this becomes, as we know, after the war, the playbook. You know, you're going to call in strategic air. You're going to help the locals, you know. Like I said, it's a big bang for your buck. So after the war, it becomes a bit of a playbook because politicians don't have to put many boots on the ground to get an effective result, you know.
Yeah.
And the Phantom was present at Market Garden. Their radio set worked. Don't worry. They were there.
But they didn't get air in. Mind you, they were too close for air at Market Garden, weren't they?
They weren't talking to the right people.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. Because all those nets are open. Phantom's line is open. They can speak to 1st Allied Airborne Army headquarters. Not that Browning can do anything, to the Airborne Corps headquarters, rather, at Nijmegen. And the BBC are also speaking to London quite happily. They don't have a problem at all.
Really? Really?
Yeah. I mean, Ian Wellstead's very interesting about how he ends up in the SAS. But basically, he's out for dinner with his wife. He sees a strange fellow. Well, he's convalescing. He's been injured. He volunteers to join the parachute regiment, breaks his leg on his second jump. And while he's convalescing, in a restaurant, sees this marvellous fellow who he then discovers is Paddy Mayne and says, "Who are you? What do you do? Well, you seem like the right sort of chap. Join us." I mean, there's absolutely none of the, you know, running on Brecon Beacon's stuff, is there? It's completely absent, isn't it?
No, I mean, Mike Sadler, who sadly died recently, he was in the Rhodesian bar in Cairo. And he ends up talking to two guys, and they're actually the long range desert group. You know, oh, we need some gunners because he's a gunner at that point. You know, and he says, oh, we need some gunners. You should come and join us. It's just that's how it happened. But I think they then sort it out because, like, you know, you do get people return to units. You know, you get people who like didn't work out. But like I'm saying, we'll come to 2SS because poor old 2SS end up with too many raw recruits. Really, I always feel a bit sorry for them because they've got they get the poor man's sort of deal on this one. But yeah, we'll talk about them next time. Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Well, that's been fantastic. We've done all the D-Day operations and Normandy operations, and next stop, the pursuit.
Thanks everyone for listening. You've been listening to me, Murray, James Holland, and Tom Petch talking about the Special Air Service. And you can always join our Patreon where you get this, lots of stuff in advance, the dates for We Have Ways Fest, V for Victory, live streams, all sorts of stuff. Or you can become a subscriber, officer class subscriber on our Apple podcast channel. Everything is curated into subject order, which is actually quite useful. If you're new to the podcast, like the guy I met on Monday who said, oh, I'd never heard of your podcast until this evening. I'm going to start on it now. And I didn't feel sorry for him, but, you know, I gave him a firm handshake and said, good luck.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of it, isn't there, Jim?
Well, we're over 800 now.
Over 800 episodes of War Waffle. So you can listen to those there. We will see you for our, I think, third and I think final part of SAS Operations. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Cheerio.
Yeah.
Cheerio.
Thanks very much. Cheerio.